And we're live. Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Welcome to the first episode of Where Heartbreak Feels Good, a dazzling podcast about stories that may or may not feel perfect and powerful. I'm one of your hosts, Josh Woodbury, and to the right of me, we have Edgar.
yeah.
Want to introduce yourself, Edgar?
Yeah. Well, you already said my name. My name is Edgar Ortega, and I'll be one of your co-hosts for this new journey, I guess. So yeah,
And our
Preston,
other primary host,
don't let me
introduce
don't leave me
yourself.
hanging.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
I'm Preston. Excited for this. Excited for tonight. Talk some Batman, and excited for all future episodes as well. So, yeah.
Preston, aka Path.
The man of
So
many names.
yeah, we're this three main. We'll be your main primary host for this little podcast we're doing. But every episode we plan on having like a rotating group of guests, and our first one is Mr. Alden Diaz.
Hello, straight out of Bloodhaven. Not quite Gotham, but up the road. Yeah, breaking in the guest chair here. Very exciting. I'm keeping it warm. All future guests, if you come to the guest chair and it's not what you expect, it's my fault. But yeah, happy to be here. I got to sort of be in the group chat, sort of watching this show come to
Yeah,
pass. Like as we all are in a Twitter chat together. It's a gnarly place. I'm newer there, and by the time I joined, there was rumblings of a show was coming.
You were
And
like
here it is.
you were like our very own Batman in the shadows watching.
Exactly.
you
Like the
are
sweet
guy.
montage at the top of the movie, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Just is he in the alley? Is he over here? Is he above me? What's going on? But really, he's by the subway, saving that guy.
Exactly.
Subway.
So yeah, this thing's been like a project we've been working on for like a while. It started with we did like 2 streams with some other friends about Oscars stuff and Sundance, and I had fun with that. So we thought, like, why not just do a full thing? So we're
Yeah,
doing it
we just
now.
kind of just like jumped into it because again we've been talking about this for like over a year, maybe even reaching two.
A while.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
long
a
while.
while,
A
a
good
long
bit.
while,
That's
a
your
good
metric.
bit.
A good bit.
Yeah, yeah. So those two runs were pretty fun, and we were just like, fuck it, let's just do it. So now
And
we're here.
why not dedicate this whole thing to the new Queen of Cinema? Am I right?
I, I
Who
almost,
is
I
one of our Batman characters in the Batman chronology?
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
going back to forever.
Batman
And
Forever. Yeah.
my favorite of the
True.
original four, or of those
Really?
four, not Adam West aside. Yeah, of the Burton Schumachers, I love Forever.
Yeah.
I ride
I think
and die for that movie.
89's my number 2 Batman film after this one. We'll get to it, but
Oh.
Forever's up there. I really love Forever.
haven't seen Forever like, well,
I haven't seen
not
Forever
too-
in forever. I'll
even
tell you
forever.
that.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
but,
any of those in a really long time.
yeah.
Hey, I
Didn't
think this is
didn't they get like a remaster
got
recently?
Carson in here.
Like
I don't
It's
know
Carson.
it's the clarification. Oh, I appreciate the bats too. Stay on brand, on theme, Nathan. Is that renewal plan? But I'll take that. Yeah, I'm the renewal
Will you?
plan that like actually helped the orphans. That kept things
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Are we your orphans?
Yes. Yeah, and one of you inevitably will aggressively sing Ave Maria before the end of this episode.
I got this. I got this in the bag. That's me.
Go for it, Preston.
Which,
Go for it.
before we get
Before
Dano
the
on the
end.
show,
Before the end. Come on.
it'll come when you least expect it.
Yeah.
Much like a bomb or rats to your face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we just get into it?
Get right into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson. Let's talk
What a
about
fucking movie! What a fucking movie to go after War of the Planet of the Apes. Like
This man's
that
on a
was just
roll,
real.
man.
Yeah. Also, like I've been rewatching this guy's filmography, like leading up to the Batman,
Mm.
and just like seeing him evolve into like to where he is basically right now. It's been just like such an interesting journey. Like even like something like which I don't think a lot of people have seen, and the people that have, I haven't really like see them talk about it. But Let Me In, his like remake of like an old horror movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let the right one in.
What
I
was that?
heard of that movie because of you. Because I've never really heard of that before you like brought it
Yeah,
up again. So I want to go back and watch that.
yeah. Out of all of this, out of all of his movies, that might be the most like. Not that it's like because it's vampires. I'm not saying like, oh, it's like the most like similar to this, but like
Yeah.
it has like a very like noir like crime drama feeling to it, while
Yeah.
still like still like tackling those like vampire mythos. But going back to Batman, yeah, watching it opening, I guess the first
You
fan
did the
screening.
the $28 fan thing, huh?
I paid 40
With an
bucks for that
NFT
shit, bro.
involved.
Worst of all, I didn't even get it.
Ah, unbelievable. You don't get
yeah.
that hexagonal profile picture on
How
Twitter
could
now.
they skimp on the NFT? It's terrible.
I think they did that for the No Way Home too, and
They've
they
been
sent it
doing it
like
a
a
lot
week or
recently.
two. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but whatever. I kind of lost my thought right there, but yeah, just watching these people like.
I bet you are,
Still
Carson.
waiting.
Still waiting on my Moonfall NFT, he
NFT.
says.
Was that actually a thing?
It was a thing, yeah.
Oh shit. No, but yeah, like leading up to the Batman, what a weird journey. This movie was supposed to be Ben Affleck like solo movie, and now we're what a brand new Batman. And like the vibe of the movie is just so freaking euphoric.
Mm-hmm.
And that opening scene, my God, like, can you sing for
Probably my
us the
favorite
opening
scene
scene?
of the movie. Like
Mhm.
not the
Preston?
opening scene, but like the one that comes after the Riddler scene.
The first
Yeah,
narration, the
yeah,
Yeah.
first Blade
It's
Runner
fucking
narration.
incredible.
Well, original Blade Runner before the
Yeah.
for like edits, but yeah, it's. I mean, everything from the sort of like the 1, 2, 3 punch of the huge title card, which
Amazing.
yeah.
looks gorgeous in IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just gets you right in to the Riddler POV of, oh, is that the Waynes? Oh no, it's we're here, like this is now, and then into all that. It's like, yeah, it's just
I love how that scene parallels when not the time jump is like wrong this movie, but when Bruce is like spying on Selena too. It's like similar like
oh
technology
yeah,
that he uses. Yeah, it's really
oh yeah.
cool. And
This
interesting.
film, I I think that every comic book movie filmmaker should attempt to do this. Sometimes it doesn't always lend itself to that. You know, like some other comic book films, it's like you're picking a villain. It's not going to be the case. Like you are not going to make Zemo Captain America's arch nemesis when we know it's the Red Skull. Batman presents an opportunity after this many iterations to really make a case for anyone sort of being that, especially after that many Jokers. So at this point, it's like this film had the liberty to really make Riddler the Batman villain, and they did it. Like he is the antithesis in so many ways, from the technology, like you mentioned, down to the, now we're jumping way ahead, but we'll get back on track. But the ending with his journal having classic Batman text in it, like the "I know now what I must become," all that, like that's you, down to being the orphans. He's just the Dark Mirror, and they made a case for it stronger than probably anything since Ledger, although I don't think they're similar. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that was really
So
good.
the drop head mask.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I wanna say something real quick about that because first of all, I guess you can consider like the second opening of the movie with Bruce narrating and during Halloween night. Um, Matt Reeves does something really fucking cool with the way um, he's able to convey emotion through a mask, even though you don't even see the face. Like Nathan right now mentioned the drop head mask. That moment where the guy is just looking up to the sky to the back signal, and he's just like still, like he can't even move. He's just like shaking, and like you can't see his face, but somehow
Exactly. Yeah.
somehow you like you get like that sense of like fear through the mask, which is really weird like to explain, but it comes across as a very good visual. It almost
I
looks
think
like
Yeah.
it's
They captured the
yeah,
fear really well during that sequence.
yeah. I think it's a lot of a reason. One of the reasons that the Mandalorian works is the body language and acting with your movements. When you go
Mm.
through that opening scene, it, the body language of the drophead mask is just very. He looks up, helicopter lights coming down, and then helicopter goes away. Oh God, there's the bat signal, and I think it's really interesting how in the narration Bruce says, "I am the shadows," and then it shows a couple scenes where the shadows are doing Batman's job, right? They look
yeah.
up,
Hmm.
like the goons are the criminals are looking up, they see the bat signal, they're like, oh God, oh, there's this shadow right there, he could be in there, I'm out. So it doesn't even though he's not there, the fear as a tool theme that they're playing with and
Yeah.
all of that is very present. And I think it's cool how in the middle of that, like while they're doing something, while they're doing that, they're also establishing another massive part of the film, which is this whole I don't know, this deconstruction of class in Gotham, because you get unnamed goon number 378, whatever, just spray painting broke on the walls of I can't remember what the whatever building it is. Maybe the police, I don't know, the
Yeah.
police
I
Isn't
don't
department or
it
remember.
something like that. But
isn't it the one from the funeral, or am I mistaken it?
yeah, that's it. I don't know
Was
what
it?
building that is, but it's the same building, I'm pretty sure, or it's similar architecture. But I just think it's interesting how and you can take so many moments within this film where they're doing so many things at once, whether it's like a
Hmm.
visual technique that's blowing you away, or whether they're telling two stories at once that are intertwined with themselves. It's just so
Yeah.
clearly intentional with its storytelling
Hmm.
and with its
Hmm.
style. And it starts
It
from the
is
beginning.
like, it is so, yeah, it's so methodical and like it's so purposeful. And to your point about that beginning, like it's starting the class stuff, which is just phenomenally interwoven throughout the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard to not, and I said this on my Twitter thread, it's sort of about the difference between this and Bale's Batman. It's so hard to not bring up the other iterations because it's iterative, and this is what version. It's Adam West, then two more, then this is fifth Batman, sixth Batman,
Yeah,
Around there.
there
Yeah.
was
not
somebody
not
Quite
before
a
counting,
lot.
West, no?
and then Conroy. Yeah, so that's another one. Then Will Arnett, can't forget him. That's another one.
Yeah.
So it's which amazing movie. But you
One of the
end up with
best
this
Batman
like
movies.
it unironically is it's awesome. But you have to then start to deconstruct this stuff sort of within the context too. So it's like, and this is not a total, I'm not going to poo poo Dark Knight Rises, even though I'm not that big a fan of it. But I think that this film does what Dark Knight Rises thought it was doing with the class stuff. And Dark Knight Rises sort of stops and ends at like a French Revolution type thing, like take back your city. But like
Hmm.
this one
Mm-hmm.
told me what the people think, whereas that one, it was like, oh, take it back. But like I never really understood them like you do here, and in such small ways, like small changes like or updates, taking Bruce and Alfred and putting them in a tower above
Yeah.
everything instead of in Wayne Manor, and then taking Wayne Manor and making it this dilapidated building that they bequeathed upon to the orphans. Like, here you go, you could have the
Yeah.
old mansion. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you see Wayne Manor, it's hell. It's the hell Riddler was born in. And then in really tiny ways, like Batman, I love at the end, he doesn't know what a carpet puller is. He needs that cop to tell him. The cop's like, oh, it's for, he just calls it's the murder weapon. And it's like, yeah, it's for carpet. Like Bruce would never know that. And so it just, at least this Bruce wouldn't. And so you buy that by like now, like before Batman 2, whatever that movie might be, he's going to become the detective that is like super learned. Like you play Arkham City, there's a Deadshot side mission in that game where Batman is able to solve it by being like, yes, it's the type of paint that was made between this year and this year because it didn't have lead in the paint. And this, like, you believe that now he's going to really pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah. And they in terms of like Bruce's character just showing here and there in little moments throughout the film, I think the biggest moment is obviously when he's talking to Selena on the rooftop or in the scaffolding or whatever. And basically like they're talking about Annika, Selena's friend, and he's just like, well, she got in with the wrong people. She shouldn't have done that. And, you know, basically says, I don't remember the specific line, but he's like, she made her choices, you know, whatever, you have a choice to. And she basically
saying she just like deserved it. I'm just saying, you know, like he has such a simplistic worldview. Like you just don't.
Yeah, it's very like arrogant. Yeah. Also, like when now that you brought up the Wayne Tower, my God, the production design in there. Somehow they were able to make it even more gothic than whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Movies. Like it feels like a fucking vampire actually lives in there.
Yes, exactly. And it this Batman feels like a creature. And, you know, to go back to that beginning, what I love about it, and to your point, Preston, about how the shadows are doing his work, it's making like that opening has you so, and the film does it masterfully. You're so on board for that approach. And then the film takes its almost 3-hour runtime to refute the approach. And by the end, you're like, oh, I was wrong too. I was rooting for the wrong stuff. Because at the beginning, they're so, you know, Matt Reeves is so wise to not have Batman take out like the first 2 or 3 guys. Let the fear sort of sit in, and then it's not until the subway fight that he actually emerges. And then that's when you get I'm Vengeance, and you're like, fuck yeah. And then at the end, you hear I'm Vengeance thrown back at him, and you're like, oh no.
that was such a fascinating choice to bring that back and have like the Riddler's like guys say that. It's really cool.
The whole film
lands
is just
so well,
putting it against
like
that.
Yeah, that line lands so well. It's so earned. You know, you look at, and we don't have to talk about this too much. Batman versus Superman. The Martha line does not land for most people. I like Batman versus Superman. Don't love it near as much as this film. Point being, you know, when you have, you know, I've never written a screenplay, but when you're working in like your zinger at the end, right? That one moment that's gonna be like, oh God, you know, like that moment. And that's what that is in this film. It's the Riddler goon saying, I'm Vengeance. And then you think about it in context of the film, like that works. That lands so well because of Riddler's whole his whole motivation behind everything that he's doing, you know.
And the fact that it comes down to that moment, which leads into cut the wire, which leads into hit the water. Then you get sort of the symbolic, very classical myth, the baptismal water coming out of it, reborn. And then it's the character, and credit to a friend of many of us on Twitter, Michael McCoy, who said, the character who is famous for disappearing when you're not looking lights the flare and says, here I am.
Right.
Let me guide you out of here. And it's also anti-shadow. And
that's
and the way that he's like, hey, here's let me pull the mayor out. Let me pull the former mayor's child out, which those moments with him throughout the movie are beautiful. And you get so much out of those interactions. And then it just crystallizes when the woman who's being helicopter evac'd out puts her hand on his arm, and he does it back. Like, for this to be the sold as the goth, emo, horny, darker than dark, wetter than wet one, and then also be the most hopeful one is crazy.
And it wasn't they balance it like, in that scene when he's like lighting the flare. I love how they're first reluctant to like have him help them. Like you see the fear in their eyes.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
the mayor's kid is the first one to do it because we've seen him interact with Batman before, and he
yeah.
sees the good in him. So once he
Mhm.
does it, the mayor and the other people start to realize that maybe this Batman guy is good. Maybe
And you know what, Josh? You know something?
what's that?
In 10 to 12 years, they're gonna do another Batman, and that mayor's kid is gonna be a cop, and he's gonna be like, you know something? I knew you were the Batman because I saw your eyes, and I knew that you were an orphan, just like I was an orphan. And then it's gonna be Joseph Gordon-Levitt again somehow as that
My
kid.
theory, my theory is actually that there's a time jump between parts 2 and 3, and he becomes Robin. What do we think about that?
Just
Mayor's kid.
make it original Robin. I'd be down for an original
Yeah.
Robin. Yeah, I
It'd
mean,
be
there's
neat.
already been so many Robins. Might as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Do they
Yeah,
even?
but I think going back to like what you were saying, Alden, that was something that I realized tonight when I was watching it. Is that like it's so and it's just beautiful, emotional, and just like so impactful when you go from that very first scene with him where he says, "I am the shadows," fear is a tool, but he goes from "I am the shadows" to literally becoming the light in the darkness for people to follow him out of. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a visual representation of his journey and who Batman becomes by the end of the film.
And then they emerge in the day, and then the funeral motorcycle scene is in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You get dawn, and then like I don't think any of the Batman films. That's not true. Well, yeah, no, Rises does. Rises ends in the day,
Yeah.
but very differently, of course. This one though, like for his mission to go on now in the day. To your point, Josh, about this guy potentially being a Robin, this feels like a Batman who, I thought it was a very strong choice. And this will be sort of the first supporting cast member we mentioned to have Circus's Alfred and him on bad terms at the beginning of the film. Now I believe that this guy, they do such a great job with the screenplay. I believe that he's going to want to establish a support system now, not just with Gordon, but strengthen his bond with Alfred, who he can now actively see what he did do for him. That it wasn't just teaching him how to fight. You believe that this guy now might bring in an apprentice, might bring in
Nathan. Exactly.
Becomes.
Yeah, I mean, he might become the kind of guy that goes and seeks out not that we need to ape everything that happened before, but a Lucius Fox or somebody else. I don't know, an Oliver Queen, another rich guy.
I'm so interested in who they cast as Lucius in this trilogy or series.
Who they would cast as Lucius?
Yeah, who they would cast.
Yeah. I
was thinking maybe Coleman Domingo would be a fun choice, but
he's great. He's great in everything.
Yeah, he's always great.
Yeah, I could see him. Ron Cephas Jones from This Is Us. For people that watch This Is Us on NBC, not a sponsor. He's always great, but yeah, it's interesting to see. I mean, that's one thing about this film, right? Is that every single time a casting announcement came out, I was like, oh god, yeah, hell yeah! Like when they announced Dano and they announced Zoe Kravitz, like this was just hit after hit after hit. Circus, John Turturro, my god,
right? He's incredible.
Al Pacino?
Did you say Al Pacino? Al Pacino as who?
Then Jeffrey Wright, which is like the best
Jeffrey
Gordon
Wright
we've had. Oh my god.
Jeffrey Wright is the master of a new style of comedy that is Gotham comedy. It's never funny. It's so grizzled, but just like small things like no guns, and then he's like, "That's your thing, man."
I love that he calls
he's like, "Nah, man, that's your thing."
He just calls him man, like
calls him man almost the entire movie.
Yeah. So
and
good.
The scene of faking out the other cops and all of their relationship is just so good.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Man of the Bat. Ooh, I like that one.
One of my favorite little moments in the movie between Gordon and Batman is like when they're in like I guess it's an apartment or house or whatever the Riddler was staying at, and they're looking at the evidence that was left there, and and Bruce is starting to think like, oh, this guy may or may not actually know that I'm Bruce Wayne, and he's like thinking to himself like, oh, maybe it's time for this to end. And Gordon is like, what? Batman is like, well, the Batman. And one of the moments in that scene, it has got to be when Bruce tells him like, you're a good cop. And one of the reasons why I think that like it's so fucking good is because you know that he wants to say like you're a good man, but he doesn't want to sound like maybe lose like that emotionless aspect that a lot
Mhm.
of people think that he has.
Mhm.
So he just goes to the closest compliment that he can give Gordon to, and I think that's just their whole relationship in the movie is just
Yeah.
perfect.
I love that we like
Mhm.
finally have a Gordon that works alongside him for the duration of the movie, and not just like a scene or
Right.
a few scenes. Yeah.
And also that, I mean, that's one of the biggest points, right? Is starting this at the end of year 2 is such a perfect. I mean,
Oh
it's the
yeah.
same thing as starting Tom Holland after having been Spider-Man for around a year. We are at the point now where the death of Uncle Ben, the death of the Waynes, the forging of the relationship with Gordon, the destruction of Krypton, there are some things that are as in our culture as Jesus, and we do not need to reiterate them. We can allude to them in the best ways, and the use of a Gordon relationship that's already a thing. We have a signal. We've been doing this. The rest of the police department already looks down on Gordon for the most part for the allyship, and we already have a Bruce that he believes has dealt with in his mind, at least to the best of his ability, the randomness of the Wayne deaths. Then he finds out it may not have been random. The film smartly sort of keeps it that it could be anything. Both Falcone and Alfred, neither of them have the 100% truth, and they don't know. Mostly Alfred
Mhm.
is correct, obviously, but yeah,
Yeah.
it gives us like all these films so far, and I love some of them, but some of them have just done Thomas and Martha are dead, and here we go. This one was like, yeah, but what about them?
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it
What
actually
about them?
questions who they
They're
are and
always
who they were.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
always portrayed as this like Boy Scout, like parents like, oh, they were
Yeah.
like the
Exactly.
perfect.
And I
They
love the Begins version, the why do we
yeah.
fall, like all that stuff. Like that's valid for that as being like an icon type Batman. That Batman is about being something more than Bruce. This Batman is Bruce. And I've said it. I don't think that this
Bruce
guy,
is Batman. Is
he is
Bruce? Yeah.
Batman. And that's the one thing that the Riddler
Yeah.
says that's true, which I love that the film said. He says this, people think that they want to unmask you. He's like, there's no point. This is you.
Exactly.
Which is another great moment, is the whole Riddler characterization comes down to that, and the making the audience think for a good amount of time, like half the scene, making the audience think that he got him, and you could see it in Pattinson's eyes. He's like, I'm found out. He knows. And then it changes to and we almost had him, and then you could almost see his eyes like, oh thank God, like
Yeah,
he
because
thinks
you see him
he still
freaking
thinks we're
out about
separate people.
the
Yeah.
camera, like the security camera and
Bruce
stuff. Oh, since we're talking about
Wayne.
Riddler,
Yeah.
Paul fucking
He
Dano.
looks
Like,
like
are you kidding me?
uh if
He is
this
out
movie
of this
would have come
world.
out like if this movie would have come out like later this year, he would totally be like on the
Oh
run
yeah.
for supporting
Oh
the
yeah,
Riddler.
he is just, and one thing that he does have in common with Ledger's Riddler, and that'll be a conversation. And again, if you're watching this, they're very different. But one thing that they have in common, or more so that Reeves and Nolan have in common with their use of them, is that he is peppered throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There are long stretches of no Riddler.
Yeah.
But his presence is all over every scene. It's terrifying. He's legitimately unhinged. And it feels so relevant to now.
Yeah.
Evidently, Edgar taken out by the Riddler.
Riddler got him.
There we go.
Riddler got
There he
Edgar.
Yeah,
But yeah, Paul
I
Dano is
think
like
his presence being felt throughout the movie, even when, because there's a long stretch between, mid second act to mid, beginning of the third act almost, where, when they dive into the history of the Waynes, and then Bruce, you know, he goes and he talks to Alfred and he talks to Falcone and all this stuff before they even bring out Falcone. Then Riddler finally comes back whenever he, you know, obviously has the kill shot on Falcone. That whole sequence, you know, in a lot of other films could be seen as, oh, they're becoming distracted from the main plot. Like, we want to see what the Riddler's going to do next, what's going to happen, but they're going in on this Thomas and Martha Wayne stuff. But in reality, it really is just, like I was saying earlier, it's interwoven so well. Intertwined is the correct word. It's intertwined so well with the Riddler and his whole journey and what he's going to do next. It's just the whole time, even though the Riddler takes a back seat and he's not on screen, you know, he could be at any moment. You never know when he's going to come out, because the whole time Bruce is trying to uncover what his plan is, what's going to happen next.
Exactly. And like, it ties in with what Reeves was sort of saying, that Bruce's origin has already happened, but in terms of the context of the film, this is really the origin story for every character in it. We see the small Alfred transformation of, now the truth is out there and he can be more the Alfred that Bruce needs right now. So it's obviously Selina's origin, but that, you know, from the top of the movie, she's in this downtrodden position. By the end, she's going to go forge her own path and refers to herself as the cat at the end. And Penguin's very obvious. He gets the #1 spot now in a Gotham that is in the Iceberg Lounge that is now in the middle of a flood. Like, it all sort of comes together for that character. And for the Thomas and Martha stuff, that is so much of this city's origin and Bruce's and Riddler's. Like, it's all so perfectly intertwined, like you're saying, that it's doing the work of 4 different arcs. It's doing the work of the Mafia arc, of the Bruce arc, of the Bruce versus Alfred and Alfred, the Riddler stuff. And it's also tying in directly with his lessons, right? Because I love that he has Thomas on this pedestal, like the audience does, where we're like, Thomas and Martha Wayne are perfect. And then they take in the the Batman Earth 1 graphic novel of making her an Arkham and making her maiden name Arkham, and that she has mental illness in her family. And that's a wrinkle. But then the big wrinkle of, did Thomas Wayne have a journalist offed to preserve this information? You find out what he did want is for the journalist to be scared. And that's the thing about it, is that he made the same sin.
That's from the Hush line, right? I haven't read much of the comments, right?
The Hush stuff is, well, so that scene also tees up Hush. Hush comes on the screen, and the journalist's last name is Elliot. In the Hush arc, Thomas Elliot is a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, and the Waynes and the Elliots sort of know each other. So yeah, that sort of all comes from there. But what's great is that we established, they take from Long Halloween that Thomas Wayne saved Falcone. So he did this act of mercy, then thought probably, I could trust this guy to just do what I ask, just some fear. All I need is for him to go away. But it's a slippery slope. And Thomas learned the very hard way. What Bruce learns here is that that's not a sustainable path. And he made that one mistake for love, trying to protect his wife's reputation and family and stuff. And that's fine. But it costs him. And for him to have to learn that, and for Bruce to have to know that, is so powerful. And for Alfred to say, like, it could still be random, but that
entire, like, I don't know what you can call it, like a story arc. It really reminded me of the whole, like, the whole subplot in The Last Jedi, where which POV should we believe, Luke or Kylo? And it's that, like, and it opens a very interesting conversation. And in The Last Jedi, that question is answered, but here it's not. It's still an open question, and it's more for you to, like, decide whether you want to think that Falcone is the actual killer, or, like you said, it's just some random dog that needed money.
Yeah, it's really effective. It's really powerful, and everything with Falcone. Like, I think this is my favorite Batman film now. I think it's a masterclass. I think it's beautifully,
Mm-hmm.
wonderfully crafted. The only thing that I would say maybe could have been smoothed out a little bit, just for me, is the rat with wings. Not the progression of who it is, but just the sort of a little bit of the info dump that happens when they have the crooked cop on the roof before she kicks him off. Because he gives us the whole thing, like, yeah, Kenzie, the whole thing of like, okay, so Falcone had the cops and the politicians. The Maroni sting was a ruse. That way Falcone could take over the operation. Okay, got that. But then they kind of just like, oh, and also the renewal fund was helping us. Like, that sort of felt like it was just like we need to get Orphan Riddler directly into the Falcone plot. If that had just had a little bit of a, like, maybe, I don't know, like something like address maybe Thomas as a doctor trying to get the drops off the street or something like that, like something that would have given that an organic. It just sort of felt like they were like, oh yeah, we have this renewal fund. It was crooked. Like, it just, why was it crooked? It was. But in a movie this tight, I will give them that one, it was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're jumping around. We're not necessarily sticking to just one.
Yeah.
To just one aspect of the movie. But let's talk about Catwoman. Like we mentioned, she herself gets her own little like character arc within the movie, and that first scene where they introduce her and Batman just like looks at her and that whole interaction with the Penguin, it's like it's so good. Like off the spot, you feel the chemistry between these two, and it only gets even better as the movie progresses.
It makes the ending, that final scene of Bruce watching through his side mirror, watching her go over the hill. I mean, it makes it a lot more emotional because his whole life, this is the first person that he can actually relate to. Oh, she's kind of been through something similar, and she's, becoming this vigilante type, whatever, she's fueling all of this trauma and this pain into this, which is the same thing I'm doing. But I haven't met anybody who's doing that. I haven't met anybody who could even relate to what I'm doing. And I have a connection with this person. And this is the first person I've had a connection with. And it makes, I don't know, I like the ending a lot because of that. I think that's why the ending is so powerful. Just that final shot.
Yeah, I think this might be the. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I was going to add on that, like that meaningful connection to go away with a character that is so obsessed with fear and driven by fear and hasn't had that meaningful connection. It's almost like, can I continue to make this change without her? And what will happen to her without me? Because Bruce, like, he's got that arrogance still, that ego, like that authority that he feels to be able to make the moral calls is always a Batman thing in the comics. That you're going to tell Gordon not to carry the gun. He didn't have your code. Like, you're going to tell Selena what to do. Like, she didn't have your code either. That's always a thing that Batman has to wrestle with. And for his pupils, his Robins and Batgirls, like, he can impart that in them. But in this grown woman, like, now that she's gone, what will she become? Is she going to adhere to what he taught her about throwing her life away in this film? And what will he become without her, calling him out on his privilege and calling him out on his hiding behind the mask, and the fact that this is a film unlike Returns and unlike Rises, where we've seen the other cinematic Catwomen. And also in the 1966 Batman film, the Lee Merriweather one, I believe she sees Bruce's face. There is no Bruce Selena scene in this movie. It's just Batman and Selena. And so she also leaves not fully knowing him, which is another thing that this film does really well, where they could still do the sequel and do the unmasking, and she could realize it's the rich boy. Like this,
Yeah. And they've set that up to where, obviously the line that all of Twitter is talking about, and that I'm sure Ben Shapiro hated, it's these rich white people. And honestly, he's right to go after them.
The guy,
you almost like watching Bruce hear that, like, that has to be like, oh, You know, like
Yeah.
that's got to cut. That's got to be like, oh, she's talking about me. She doesn't know she's talking about me. Now, you know, he's feeling bad for his privilege essentially because she's calling him out on it, and she may be the first person to have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny because the guy sitting next to me on my first viewing, he was one of those idiots who fucking moaned and whined about it, about that line.
Mm.
I was so glad that because when it was coming, like I felt like time slowed down when it was white privilege. I was like, oh no, like I didn't want to
Oh
hear anyone
god,
about
here
because
we
I'm in
go.
Florida. I'm in Florida, everyone.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I was. Preston knows. I was worried. I was like, Preston and I are both in Central Florida. I was like,
Yeah.
but
Here we
thankfully
go.
everyone was chill.
Yeah.
People were. I also think that same group of people feels called out by he has 500 followers, all fringe types. Like the
Yeah.
hey everyone, it's Riddler. Welcome to my unboxing of this rifle.
I think but also even that whole, you know, this is obviously I thought it was interesting how a lot of films these days, especially superhero films, they will either not touch on the technology of this time. They just it's not a central point. It's not a tool that they use to advance the plot or whatever. Or they'll do amazing technology. We have this hologram projector that's gonna, you know, or you know, so obviously, I mean, you look at the MCU as just like, you know, nanotech, like that doesn't exist in real life. However, you know, in this film, it just kind of has technology that we have. It's part of what makes it feel like a very real thing. Like the way that one of the best scenes in the entire film is done through a FaceTime call. Like I just think that was neat. And
But also
they
like
used that to kind of
yeah.
call out that culture of how shall I say this gracefully? You know,
The
toxic
that live
on the
their
internet.
yeah, that they live
You
their
know,
lives 24/7.
yeah,
The
toxic people on
terminally
the internet,
online, the
the truth
grifters
social.
and
Chronically online.
yeah, like the terminally online grifters who hang out on the dark web and that whole you're right and when it does push it like with the contact lens from the Court of Owls run, like that's a super science enough. What I'm assuming is proto Venom, the green tube that he shoots into his own arm. Like Reeves is saying, like, I have broken this world in. Now here's a little bit of this, here's a little bit of that. Oh, I'm gonna flood Gotham. Like, I love that this film was sold to us as, and in the media interviews, it was all grounded. But the thing is that grounded and realistic are not the same thing.
Exactly.
Grounded means you ground it in the world you're in. You believe that Tony Stark can do what Tony Stark does. You believe that Hugh Jackman is popping those claws out in that movie. You believe what's happening here. But it is a heightened world. This is closer to Arkham Asylum or Batman the Animated Series than it is to The Dark Knight, which is Chicago. You know, this city feels like an otherworldly hellhole in a lot of ways.
They bring that in through the architecture. I think the production design of it all is really, especially there's, you know, a few shots within the Wayne Tower, you know, in that I don't want living room. I don't know. The area with
it's
the
so
table.
It's so strange.
It's like what would you even call that room? Whatever. But
his breakfast quarters.
It's like he's
only
literally
breakfast.
Yeah, it's like he's like in this like
Fresh
cathedral
berries.
almost, and it's really neat to see because it's like the plot in and of itself is very it's obviously like heightened for the movies, obviously. However, you could almost see a serial killer doing these things and going on this rampage. Like that kind of stuff is realistic and things that happen in the real world. You know, you don't have an alien coming from outer space with infinity stones, whatever. It's something that is, you know, you can feasibly see, like, it's terrifying, but it's something that could happen in the real world. But it's happening in this world where it does feel very fantastical when you're watching it. And it does feel very unrealistic at the same time. The plot's realistic, but it's not set. I don't know. You know what you get what I'm saying?
It's just so that ever so slight, like crank it up with a little spice, like things like the Batcave. They give you a realistic Batcave idea. You write it down on paper. It's what if the Batcave was an abandoned, looks like a train terminal underneath that Wayne Tower.
So
But
cool.
because it's in this Gotham, you believe that that might just be abandoned and never looked at because the rest of the city is actual hell. Like when you
Exactly.
see what happened to the Wayne Manor turned orphanage, it's like out in the forest, like Riddler says, like babies would just die because it would get so cold. Like it's just gnarly. I agree
Yeah,
with this
Carson was
comment. Yeah, from Carson.
saying
Yeah.
something earlier, yeah, about this Gotham is like more like grungy and gothic. It's like it's such an interesting take on Gotham that we haven't seen in
It's
live action yet.
disgusting. It's
Yeah.
filthy.
It's
It's
distinct
putrid.
too.
The
It's not
whole
like you
place
said,
is just
not
like you watch this whole movie and you're like, I would
yeah.
hate to be in this place.
Mhm.
Like this
Because
looks
like
miserable.
Burton Goth, I think, is fantastical in the sense of it has a cuteness is not the right word, but it's Gotham the same way Nightmare Before
It's
Christmas is, right?
quirky kind of.
It's
It's Hot
quirk
Topic
exactly.
Gothic.
It's
Yeah.
Hot Topic Goth. It's quirk goth. It's charming goth. Whereas this is sort of like in Batman Begins, where they
Disgusting.
have the Narrows, where Nolan was like, "Oh, here's my regular city," but then there's also the Narrows. This is all the Narrows.
Yeah.
Reeves was like, "Yeah, what
That's
if
how
that?"
like
But the whole movie.
that's why it's the most authentic, because that's how Gotham actually is, and like all these stories that we love, like in the comics and in the games especially.
Yeah,
I think
that's
part of
why I
that,
love it when, and I think Snyder did this, where in some iterations, Snyder's is one. I think that the Earth one is also like this, where Metropolis and Gotham are neighboring cities. That's always hilarious to me. Because it's
Yeah,
like, what happened?
yeah.
that's how
What
the
the hell
Snyderverse
happened?
is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Snyder's are across the bridge
Yeah.
from each other, and it's like, Jesus, elect those officials. My
Yeah.
God,
Come on, people, just move over there.
Yeah.
for real.
I think part of one of the reasons that I really loved this Gotham is that the overall filth of it, the overall just like it feels
It's
it
a character
makes
of
the
its
whole
own.
journey. Yeah, it's a character of
The
its own,
city's
and
a
it makes
character.
the whole journey of Batman. When you every great superhero movie is going to have a moment where your hero just feels like it's insurmountable. Whatever threat that they're facing, they can't take it down. And when you're watching this film, because Gotham is so disgusting, because Gotham is so crime ridden, because Gotham is just an awful place to live by every stretch of the imagination, you feel like Gotham is fighting back as a character of its own. Gotham is fighting back against Batman as well. Not just, the Riddler, not just the crime syndicates with Falcone and all of that stuff, but Gotham in and of itself. It's like, how can you cleanse this place? How can you win? How can you truly win in a place that's this disgusting? How can you
And it
truly win in
comes
a place
across
that
like,
is this crime ridden?
yes,
Yeah, it's
and
very helpless.
It's so
yes,
fascinating
exactly,
to
and
like take that city and drown it by then. That's such a fascinating
exactly,
comic
and
or
drown it the
concept.
same way that he went under the water and it's
Yeah.
gonna, and to invoke another Batman film, it's the it gets darkest before the dawn, where we're gonna have to do before we can get, I think, a superhero-y feeling one with Pattinson. We're going to need to do even further into, be it No Man's Land, be it Zero Year, be it Arkham City, whatever story they want to pull from, with this now flooded, like he says, like some areas we can't even get to anymore. Presumably that'll be Oswald Cobblepot Kingdom, the Penguin Land. Like, so it could get even crazier. But in this film, like, those small ways, whether it's Greg Fraser, who, my God,
We haven't talked about
like
him
this,
yet. Like,
we haven't talked about
fucking
Fraser or
mastermind.
Giacchino, like,
Giacchino, yeah, like,
who
oh my
are both
god.
like adding to that helplessness, the way that they contribute, and the way like tiny things like this is a Bruce that clearly has never spread his wings and glided off a building before. The way that
That
goes
scene
for
was
him,
so
that
good.
he tries to hit the parachute and the bridge catches it and everything, and he hits the ground. Like, that's the city being like, no,
Yeah,
Not yet.
exactly. And it's showing us that he's year 2, like he's still learning, he's still figuring out how he's gonna like be Batman. Like he's still
It was
figuring
so
out things.
funny. It was so funny in my screening tonight. It was like, once the audience was very into the movie. This was probably my best audience. I've seen it 3 times. This was probably the best audience that I've had.
Was this
And when
IMAX or Dolby?
it was IMAX, and when he does
Of course.
he pulls the thing, I had a great experience with Dolby as well. Anyways, when he pulls the thing and the the wingsuit comes on, I hear multiple rows behind me of people just going, oh, like everybody's getting hyped up. They're gonna get really excited. Then he dives off the building and there's cheers, like people are clapping, and the whole time, me, who is on my 3rd viewing, I'm just in my head. I'm like, oh, y'all don't know. Like he's about to bust his ass. Like this is not gonna go the way you think.
And I will say though, for to the movie's credit, I think it has such a good, because like, and this is not a slight against Marvel or anything more fantastical, but I don't, outside of probably the Thanos confrontations, I'm never really worried. Like there was a couple
Stakes
times like
aren't
in
that high.
exactly like in Infinity War when Tony gets stabbed, I was like, because I was sure that Downey was going to be done in one of these, but those are very particular circumstances. And this one, there are several times where those failures really hit hard, but it makes it makes the well-placed victory moments feel so good. Like when the top of the Gotham City Garden explodes and he comes in and does the double hook on the guy's legs and spins himself underneath the bridge and comes around, like that, those Batman flow moments where similar to Affleck in the warehouse and BVS, which I think is the best Batman combat scene that we've had. Like this, when he flows and he's really in it, even with detective work, like it just feels so good. Like the solve 3 riddles in 2 minutes, like all of that. You're like 1 down, okay, 2 down, okay. Like you're so in it. It's so rousing.
Yeah, it's weird how well I don't know if weird is the word, but like how well this movie is able to like put like genuinely funny moments in like some of the most like dark moments, like like going back to the opening scene where they discover the body and they're like going through the murder and everything. When what's what is he? Is he the police chief? The guy that's named Pete.
Yes, he's
Is
the
he
commissioner.
chief? Oh, the commissioner. Okay.
Yeah.
So when he comes in and he's like, "Hey, like, what the fuck is this guy doing here?" And the only their one and only f bomb, it's used perfectly with the
It's so
Halloween
good.
with the
Happy
Halloween
fucking Halloween.
line. Happy fucking Halloween. But yeah, like even during the bomb scene at the funeral, like you, it's weirdly like dark and funny because you can tell that Riddler is having the time of his life, like
Exactly. Yeah.
messing with this guy, and Batman is over here like just stressing the fuck out, like trying to get more answers about who's the
And
source
about
that was working.
the bribe
But
too, like
yeah, the
when
rat,
he's the bribe, like how much money, like you're like, come on man, like Batman's doing the work for you, man, he's solved 2 already. You can't even give the details. Like yeah, you're so in it. The to your point, Edgar, the when the coroner or detective, I don't know what their profession was, when they're trying to go around the body and Batman doesn't move and he's like,
I have laughed out loud every single time. Like I think that is the funniest thing, and it's such and that's another, that, and we can talk a little bit about this later or now or whatever, but it plays up. It's the first moment throughout a couple in this movie where, for the first time, maybe for the first time, I haven't seen the older Batman movies in a while. But definitely different from Snyder's and definitely different from Nolan's. They don't treat Batman as like this icon, like this god. They're like, this is a guy who runs around dressed like a bat at night. And it's kind of weird. And it's 2 years in and he's a bit of a buffoon in some aspects. He's just
Exactly.
they don't treat him as this like, oh my God, that's Batman. He's right there.
Yeah.
They do in some aspects, but not
but
in the
for
way that
different
we're used to
reasons.
as an
Exactly.
audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're earning
he's
it.
he's the freak of the city, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
I love
is.
that
yeah,
he
and
like
That
called him a
first,
freak, like in the first
yeah,
scene. Then
and people
later
are
in the
not
film,
like,
he like is like happy
yeah, it's
about
like
it. Yeah.
there's no mystique to him. Like the fact that an officer would put their hand on him and be like, "No, you don't get to come in here." That would never happen with Bale or Affleck because they were godly in their way. And this Batman will get there because by the end, when they see what he was able to do and saving the mayor and saving the whole garden and saving the, helping us through this flood, like he will become this larger than life being. Whereas before it was a Batman who was willing to, participate in like investigations and crime scenes and stuff in a way that the other Batman maybe weren't. Like for this Batman to walk in front of other officers was kind of new, that weren't Gordon, but it was, yeah, they've humanized him in some really interesting ways here. But also they've done such a great job of showing where he has room to grow, like with not having a Bruce Wayne persona. He's just openly an asshole at the funeral to Falcone, like in front of everybody. He's still unkempt hair, doesn't want to dress right, doesn't want to take meetings, doesn't want to do philanthropy.
Yeah, he's still developing the mask that is for him, which is Bruce Wayne. Like he's still not there in the point of his life, which is going to be very interesting to see that journey of him developing that persona, that public persona.
Another thing that I want to go back on is the states of it all. Like, I love how Reeves put in high stakes for every like plot point or every character. Yet the only villainous character he kills is Falcone. Like Riddler doesn't die.
Riddler doesn't take a
Bosses doesn't
punch.
die. Exactly. It's so fascinating how like we have these high stakes, yet
Shout out to everybody making the Paul Dano jokes. Like Paul Dano didn't get his ass beat in this movie. 0 out of 10. Like Paul Dano's always supposed to get beat up. Like the Riddler doesn't even have a physical confrontation with him. He just has Riddler's beatdown is in the "I reject you." I reject you. You're a freak. You're this. You're that. Which excites me now. I normally don't want a villain repeat so quickly, but now I want to see Dano getting to face act, getting to do all that. No more leather mask. That plan didn't work with my internet, flunkies. Now it's you would assume it's the let me figure out who you are because you didn't want to be my partner. So that presents a whole new, like his origin is complete now. Now I see.
I don't think it's just so fascinating is we don't see that in Batman movies. Like the only other instance I think can think of is Scarecrow in the Nolan trilogy, where he like survives one movie, comes back to another. The main villain usually is dead or like leaves or something happens to them,
Yeah, or just like unaddressed because of obviously the real life circumstances.
It's fascinating. So,
our very own Catwoman.
Ladies and gentlemen, that cat was in the film.
I hope so. I wish would have paid some bills.
Can we talk about Michael fucking Giacchino?
Is this the work of his career? Because I think so.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's
fucking hit so far.
He's had some doozies, man. Like it's hard to. I don't want. I'm almost afraid of saying it because of recency bias, but
right.
Because Star Trek 09, Incredibles, like there are some bangers, but
yeah.
This is different. I think he's on a completely different plane here. I think this is the first time that I can remember where I've had multiple people, not like people who would not consider themselves to be movie people, film people, who come out of that movie and they're like, the music was amazing. That's not something that, as a general audience moviegoer, you're going to see Batman throw some punches and beat a bad guy. That's dope.
And I'm
that's
gonna say
really-
right now,
Huh?
Batman hasn't had the best music, at least in the Nolan trilogy.
Well, we can.
Wait, did you say?
we're
Wait, you're saying you
entitled
don't
to
like
our
this?
opinion.
I don't
You
like
don't like
it,
the
no.
Zimmer scores?
It's
Okay,
forgettable.
okay. Dude, it's so fucking look, the whole thing about the Nolan trilogy that I
Do you
love is
remember
that
it though? Is it as memorable as Gino's
bruh,
Batman theme or
I
Danny
do
Elfman's
remember.
theme?
I think that I'm gonna okay. Do I think that the Nolan Batman scores are as good as this one on the whole? No. Do I think that the Zimmer theme, the
I don't remember the theme though.
How
Bum,
does that not
yeah.
excite
bum,
you?
bum, bum,
It's good.
bum.
It's
I think
great,
that he
but,
has
like,
all three of the Batman themes because I mean Affleck has a theme, but because he
Affleck's
shared
theme's
the
better
movie.
than the Zimmer one.
See, I don't really remember the Affleck one because when I think of Snyder DC, I think of Cavill's Superman theme, which is great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think that this score is just lots
just
of
so
I've talked to
iconic
a few
already.
people with 4 piano notes
Yeah.
and some swelling brass. Dun 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 dun. And
Like, it's been in
much
my
has
head
been
nonstop. Yeah.
much has been made of the connections to music theory. I cannot take credit for what I'm about to say. I screenshotted it. But somebody said, you'll recognize obviously that 4 piano notes. They're close to, but not exactly the dice array. The 4 notes show up all over the place. You'll notice them sort of like in the Imperial March. And so
Yeah,
instead
Imperial
of
March, it's
bum,
really
bum,
similar to
bum,
that.
bum, 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 bum. Once you know what to listen for, it's hard not to notice. Those 4 notes are used to represent death. Batman as a character, as a character who never kills, always treads dangerously close to the line. So his is 1 note away from being the representation of death that you normally see in other things like with Vader. And so, so with him having that, Riddler having Ave Maria tied into his stuff.
Oh, that theme is incredible. Yeah, how that song is tied into it, and it's just so haunting.
It's amazing. The
Catwoman
theme,
thing.
the
Yeah.
love theme is just it's got everything. The way that they scored the Batmobile chase is.
Can we talk about that chase for a second? Because fucking pure sets. Like, are you kidding me? It's incredible.
I normally am not a car chase person in general. Like, I have a very if I've seen one of them, I've seen all of them, and every now and then one of them sort of shocks me. This one, I was just like, I saw it in IMAX. Not trying to start anything.
Dolby, yeah.
Best format.
But like in Dolby, it's just like you can... No, Dolby's better. Shut up. But like,
I saw it in IMAX because it was all I had. But yes, that
the way when it
startup of the
starts
car,
up, fucking incredible.
and then every hit, every crash, crazy.
It's just so. I remember because the first time I saw it was in Dolby, and this happened in IMAX too, on a lesser extent, I thought.
Hell yeah!
But just when the Batmobile starts up, I mean, you just like the whole theater's shaking, and you're like your seat is shaking. You're like, oh god, that's amazing.
I'm getting a massage here.
Yeah, right. But like you said, Alden, car chases for me. They're all pretty similar.
Unless it's Fast and Furious,
But well, I haven't seen Fast and Furious.
Shut up!
But
Get out here.
But anyways,
you banned the man. Oh no!
How dare you?
Wow.
Well, good thing we're not talking about Fast and Furious. Jeez.
We always
war.
Anyways,
we always are.
But like you said, car chases for me a lot of times they're similar. They're not memorable in a lot of movies. A lot of them you can kind of, you could take it out and put in a different car chase from a different movie, and it would be pretty similar. But the way that it's done, the way it's shot, there's so many interesting shots. A lot of them I noticed from like the back right tire and just
Mhm.
watch it, like just different
Yeah.
angles that they chose to
So
do.
good.
Reeves,
That went-
much like his real life best friend J.J. Abrams, loves to fix a camera
Exactly.
on the side of a vehicle. JJ started doing it with X-wings, and then Reeves did it here with the Batmobile. And when
And
you
in
and it was in the
Dawn,
trailers.
Planet Apes with the taint too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Batmobile skidding into frame with a fixed camera while
Are you
Penguin's car
kidding
spins
me? Like,
out
that
is like,
shot is incredible.
and also just like and we talked about score, sound mix, and sound editing and sound design in this film.
Incredible.
The like every time you hear Batman's boots on the ground, every time there's a gunshot, every time the Batmobile does anything, and when Bruce is doing the "What did you do? What have you done?"
That
I was
shook
like,
my theater more
I was like,
than the
he's gonna
Batmobile.
get through the
It was
glass.
insane.
I was like, he's gonna
Mhm.
break through. He's
was
gonna
so
come
good.
at me through the screen. Like, yeah, that is the sound is just unreal. But yeah, to your point, Preston, the shots, like whether it's tracking the Batmobile, tracking his gliding, coming down with him,
Or the
the
opening scene where he's like tracking the handlebars on his motorcycle.
yeah, and just the
Yeah.
way that like even with stuff that maybe isn't as dynamic, but just sort of not falling into the trap of early 2000s cutting and fighting, just like fixing the camera and like
Exactly.
letting
No
two hot
shaky
people
cam.
be hot. Just let them be hot. Let them kick each other.
Yeah.
Let them
Or like
hold her. Like just
also another thing I appreciate is that it's just a like static shot when any fight scene is happening. No shaky cam. No like shitty Marvel stuff or like action scenes.
and just like letting and even with like dialogue, just putting the camera there and just letting actors act. Like
Yeah.
Reeves knows when to get all up in it, and he knows when he's got sort of like what he needs. Like he doesn't need to be doing anything over the top and fancy, unless it's going to be a really, really purposeful choice. Like when he's fixing the neck bomb to Coulson in the car and it's entirely out of focus is horrifying. You are so disoriented, like the characters. Like the city is becoming disoriented. You're seeing it through the wetness and sort of through that horror, that entire, what is it called? It's bokeh effect. When you're seeing something out of focus like that, the name of that technique, it's gorgeous.
It's all every single shot, like every single shot, you can tell was planned. It's all just incredibly it's intentional with the craft. It's intentional with its style. One thing for me, I mean, a lot of people have talked about how the film uses depth of field, and I think it uses it phenomenally, better than any superhero movie I've ever seen. But one thing that I noticed this time around is it does this thing, and I don't know what to call it, but it will blur out not necessarily, your foreground or your background, which is depth of field, but it'll blur out characters or subjects on the side, aside from your specific subject that you're focusing on. And I noticed it, the one where I really noticed it, I mean, I noticed it throughout the film, but the one where I really noticed it tonight was the very end. They do like the montage at the end. There's a short clip of Bella Real speaking to the city, and basically she's the only character in focus the whole time. And she's got a line of people right next to her who are the same distance from the camera, but they're not in focus either. They're kind of blurred out, and it creates this sort of almost like a vignette kind of thing where you'll darken the outsides of your image to where the center is what's in the light. And a lot of photographers, including myself, will do that, but they do it with focus. And it's really interesting to see that done.
I didn't notice
And
that. I'll have to look out for that.
if you watch it again, it's in a few shots, and there's also some moments where one of my favorite shots in the whole film is actually right before Catwoman pulls up Batman when he's hanging off the ledge in the third act. He's in the bottom of the frame, but the whole top of the frame is just the background. It's the the water flowing underneath and the people in chaos, you know, down on the ground level. And the whole shot, I don't know if this, I assume they put in some sort of effect in post, but it's almost got these like rays where like, how do I even describe this? I'm much more of a visual person, but it's just like you are like there's Batman in his head in the bottom of the screen, like where my mic is on my screen, and then the rest is just like almost pointing at him. And it's just interesting things like that, and that's like a 2-second shot, but things like that in every single shot of the entire film make the visual style so apparent and so apparently intentional. Like this kind of stuff that they did, this was on purpose. Like this is every single shot that they don't have to
That's
do
Greg
it in
Fraser,
certain,
man.
certain
Like,
moments.
Greg Fraser having this and Dune, what they should have come out in the same year. Obviously, they didn't for real world reasons. But like the fact that he can do like that, his palette is this wide, like his set of tools, the way that he's employing all this stuff. First of all, one thing I learned just now is that when this hits home release, I'm gonna queue it up with Preston and just let Preston talk about the cinematography.
I wish
right.
I wish that I wish that I knew more about videography and cinematography. It's something that I've gotten a little into. I'm very much a photography person, but in terms of just the visual style, it's so intentional. And anyone who's ever been behind a camera making a video or making anything like that, you do it once and then you notice it in every single thing you ever watch. I remember in undergrad, I shot a commercial for this apartment complex in town, and it is just very like low quality stuff that a 20-year-old kid would do. But every shot took a lot of planning, and it was really difficult because everybody else in my group that I was doing it with was the ones on screen, and I was the guy behind the camera. And when you've done it once, then you watch a music video, then you watch a commercial, and then you watch anything you ever watch, you know, you can tell how much care and planning was put into each specific shot. And so much was put into this entire movie.
Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit on the car chase. In terms of the cinematography, it's such a cool like detail that not entirely, but for the most part, whenever we cut to the Penguin, the camera is like it's placed like on the side of the car, looking back to the Batmobile, and whenever we cut back to Batman, it's looking like forward, like that dynamic of like the Penguin like wanting to escape from this guy, and the Batman is just going like I don't care who the fuck gets in my way, I'm gonna get this guy. And through the cinematography, it's really well done. It's communicated to the audience really well done.
Hey, you know what? We've talked a little bit about some of the supporting players. Can we give Colin Farrell his few minutes? Because
Spanish King,
like unrecognizable.
Like, okay, I know there's
the voice Spanish I avoid.
Like, it's La Rata. It's
am I the only one who knows the difference between L and La? So fun.
It's like I know that like on a real note, there are valid feelings out there about fat suit use. That's a changing conversation. It's a place that we're in now that we weren't 10, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago. You know, you wouldn't think about it. Something like Anthony Hopkins playing Hitchcock, or Gary Oldman playing Churchill. You know, those types of things.
Bale Vice,
Christian Bale Vice, but yeah, people didn't bat an eye. And now with Leto, with these different people, the Elvis trailer with Tom Hanks playing the Colonel, like lots of those conversations are coming up, and I just want everyone to know, like, I hear that, totally get it, totally valid. Your mileage may vary, everyone's going to feel differently about it. But I will say, with all that preface out of the way, in terms of like heavy makeup on an incredible actor, this might be like the best I've ever seen.
Exactly, yeah. like
it's like it's nuts.
You try and look for Colin Farrell, you cannot find him. It's insane.
He's not there. I tested my sister, who and my sister, Colin Farrell has been her favorite actor since fucking isn't it Alexander? Isn't he the main guy in Alexander? And
think
like
so.
Angelina Jolie is supposed to be like his mother or something.
Edgar watches every movie under the sun. You should know, right?
He watches every
Colin
bad
Farrell.
movie.
Yeah, he was in Alexander back in 2004. He was the main character. And my sister has loved him ever since then. It's him, Val Kilmer, Jared Leto, Rosario Dawson, Anthony Hopkins, and Angelina Jolie. It's not that good.
I
But
never
anyway.
heard of this movie, but
Pretty good cast, though.
is crazy.
Yeah, he plays Alexander the Great. Yep. He's blonde.
Interesting.
So my sister's been in love with this man since 2004. And as a test, I showed her a picture of Oz in this movie and said, "Who is this?" Could not get it.
Yeah,
Could
like
not
even
get
Jared
it.
Leto,
It's
which
that
was
good.
like one of those that was unrecognizable until this.
His
like,
face
you
is
could
still there.
see-
His eyes
you
are
could see his
there.
eyes. Yeah,
He
this
still has
he's
the
fucking
Leto
gone.
eyes. He's gone.
Like,
The voice
Farrell's gone.
does not crack. Sometimes you can hear like, you know, someone with an accent from a region in Europe, and especially in the UK. Sometimes it comes through like I love Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. He cracks every now and then.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Emma Watson, notorious for cracking in Little Women and Person Being a Wallflower. Like you could tell. This guy is just he's good. He's fucking good.
He's an insane actor.
It's not even that he's doing an American accent. He's full on New Yorker. Like it's like
Yeah.
he's doing a Brooklyn accent and he's killing it. And it's
He's
really
crazy good. And he's effective. He's super funny. He's
Mhm.
never like in a different movie, which I thought maybe like I liked him in the trailers, but there was that one moment of "Take it easy, sweetheart" that I was like,
I love that line.
all right, but in the movie it works. Totally works.
Yeah.
You think of, you
But,
know, and going back to the Jared Leto comparison, Leto is very much in a different movie in House of Gucci. You know,
He's the best part of that movie.
completely
He's
in
the
a
best
different
part of
movie.
it, but he's in a different
I
movie.
want to watch that
and
movie.
I'm so glad he's in a different movie because
Yeah.
if
I
he
wanna watch
wasn't, the
that
whole
movie.
thing would have been terrible.
He
But,
makes it watchable, 100%.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
Preston, never confuse a shit
That's pretty
Let
good.
me.
with a chocolate.
Oh,
How could you?
I told you.
How
But-
could you?
It's really, you know, everybody's talking before this movie, especially like when the first trailer came out. Oh my God, that's Colin Farrell. How is that Colin Farrell? Looks nothing like him. He's unrecognizable. Very true. He's famously unrecognizable in this movie, has been since we saw him in the first trailer. But then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, he's actually like one of the best, if not the best, supporting character.
It's not just a gimmick.
Like he's funny. He brings the levity that you need in a lot of moments. I think one of the best moments in the entire movie. It has so many funny moments that I was completely unexpecting, but one of the best is when they leave him and he has to waddle away because he's a penguin.
It's so good.
And again, that's the thing. Like this movie is not at all afraid, and it's not to knock Nolan because you know The Dark Knight and Begins are like but Begins half apologizes for what it is, and then Dark Knight absolutely apologizes for what it is. This one has the penguin waddle. It has a 66 mask, a 66 car. It has the Shakespeare bust next to Alfred from 66. It has things like URL being URL, but then actually being a URL. It has things like all of these greeting cards. It has the Ave Maria. It has the Joker riddle when he's like, riddle me this, if you have fewer of these, it means, and then it's a friend. They all laugh. Like it's not at all afraid to just goof it up when it needs to. It does cheesy, not care.
But at the same time, it doesn't play, I think in a lot of moments, I think the most notable one, at least for me, because it's the most recent one that I think of, I loved No Way Home. But when they just laugh at Otto Octavius's name, it's like,
it's so forced.
It's funny, but you're also like, you're making fun of your source material in a certain way.
Yeah.
From a certain point of
view.
Yeah,
because you laugh because you like those three kids. Mm-hmm. But those three kids live in a fucking world with gods. Yeah. So it should not. Yeah.
The delivery of it is not good.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what the Batman does so well is like, it's funny. It's got so many good moments, but at no point is it detracting from itself. At no point is it
Exactly.
making fun of itself or its source material. And because of that, the humor is just like, and I think in a lot of people, I think audiences, because of Marvel and the Marvel humor, they may have been conditioned to not laugh at moments like that, or expect a moment where after Batman busts his ass when he's, opens the parachute
A
and hits the
one-liner.
ground. Yeah, Spider-Man would be like, well, that happened, something like that. But
Yeah.
Batman doesn't say that. And it's still funny. It doesn't need, you don't
The
need
camera just stays on him just long enough for him to get up and walk like 2
hobble
steps, and
off, limp off,
that is enough. Like it's
yeah.
it's in the restraint and in embracing it. Like a lesser version of this same film 10 years ago, they would have been like, Batman, this is for you. Comes from the Riddler, and some dumb cop would have been like, was the trickster taken? Oh, we have a Joker and a Riddler now. Like
They
it
fly
totally,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I will give you that.
No, but you know what I mean. Like it's just
It totally is that. Like these characters don't know that they're in a movie, and a lot of the times that's what it becomes. Where even for all its greatness, Bale's interpretation, he has like so that's what that feels like no one's around. Who are you talking to? This movie never does that. And which, by the way, since Bale voice just came out of my mouth, I have to address this Bat voice is perfect. Like
it's not too much. It's just
never
enough.
too much. He growls when he needs to. He says the word
regular
psychopath the same way that Bale does. It's like uncanny. He's like, you're a psychopath. I was like, whoa, that's when the Bale came out. But his everything about him is super good. And he's part of why what we're talking about is true. He plays it super straight. It's like, so many criticisms of this is emo Batman. Look at him. Look at his long hair. And the film does not give a shit. The film knows that that's true. The film, Alfred is the audience, like, look at you. Don't even have cufflinks. The hell's wrong with you? You look like death. Like, go take a shower. Like, he even tells him, go take a shower. Like,
yeah. And that goes back to the whole movie. And I think I will not be watching Ben Shapiro's Batman review. However,
I do look forward to the Twitter clip outs.
Yeah. I do look forward to the highlights of Ben Shapiro's review. But what is one of his tweets? He was like, the biggest problem with the Batman is that it hates Batman as a character, and I would imagine that he got that from the fact that the movie plays Batman as this big buffoon who dresses as a bat every night. And because when the guy's walking around the victim in the first crime scene, he's like, oh, can you move? You're in my way. Like they don't take him all that seriously the whole time. And
it's Batman. You're not supposed to.
Exactly. And I think that's, I don't remember why I got onto this topic again, but how it was tied in somehow.
Yeah, but that's why I love this film compared to the Nolan trilogy, because like Nolan trilogy, it's grounded, but it's like almost too grounded at the points, or like it's almost trying to be too realistic. Where this film, like we said before, like doesn't shy away from having fun with it.
It's somehow again, it's somehow the most brutal, the nastiest, the darkest, the horniest, the most all the things, but is also the one where it feels really like assured in its themes and in its comedy, and like it doesn't, like, I'm so glad, and this is a criticism of not just Snyder but Nolan too, it's one of the few times I pair those guys. This is a Batman that's finally not about post 9/11 surveillance and secure. We're finally away from it. Like, we can talk about other things. We have a mayor that's like, what if we did good stuff? We don't need to stop to have a thing with Lucius being against surveillance. We don't need to, like, it handles its themes. Boom, boom, boom. Got him. It doesn't, let's talk about society. No, we're talking about Gotham. And we'll talk about our class issues through Gotham. We're not approaching this like we're above it,
What else have we not talked about yet about this movie?
I mean, I guess Robert Pattinson, like his portrayal, we've touched on, but not really gone into it. But like, I personally think it's the best we've seen in terms of live action. He's just like he just plays it so well. He plays the emo, the naive so well, but also so like innocently, so powerfully, so beautifully. I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
one of the best he does. This is sprinkled in throughout the film. It's not so much in his line deliveries all the time, although he does have some good line deliveries, but it's in his facial acting. And a lot of times, it's in his eyes. It's in the way that he carries himself. And my favorite, I don't want to say my favorite shot in the whole movie, but my favorite shot that really just hammers that point in is when he's in the Batcave and he's watching the Riddler video, basically exposing Thomas and Martha Wayne for Martha having this, family
Mental
history, all that
illness.
stuff. Yeah. And it cuts to him and it's just a straight shot right on him. It's a tight shot of just his face. He's just taken off his mask, so his hair's everywhere. But the shot is also like tilted. They do that thing where it's like, it's like slightly off center. So now it's a little uneasy. And it's just slowly zooming in on him. And his eyes are just so like,
So good.
oh my God. You see it in his eyes and he's like, that's my parents. These are my
You'd see
my idols
the
for my entire
pain
life. These are the
in his
people
eyes,
who
yeah.
I've looked up to. This is why I'm doing Batman at all. And now the world knows or thinks or knows something that I didn't know and thinks that they
Or at
were
least
terrible
the
people.
the Falcone version of it.
Mhm.
They won't
Yeah.
know that Thomas went to the police because that dies with Thomas. So it's
Yeah.
like that perverted version is out there that he has to reconcile with while still being the Batman at the end who decides
Mhm.
to change to hope. Like I love that model. I see that I am having an effect. However, it's a change of the hypothesis. Way back at DC Fandom, the first one, because that's how long this fucking pandemic has been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Reeves kept calling it a criminological experiment. Criminological experiment. He said that like 10 times. And you see the journal is called the Gotham Project in
Mhm. I
in
saw
this,
that.
and like how Bruce is approaching this through a scientific mind. He has to reconcile all of these things now, and like you're saying with his parents, like that's why I love adapting the source material change of Martha being in Arkham, because in the comics her maiden name is Kane and they're another rich family and that's how he's cousins with Batwoman. But making her an Arkham means that he inherently carries within him Gotham's best and Gotham's worst, because they look down on the downtrodden and the mentally ill and all these things. He carries that with
Mhm.
him, but he also carries the renewal with him. He carries with him a father that didn't want mental illness to be used against somebody like Martha, and the way that he sort of embodies both of those, and the way that the Riddler refers to Arkham as hell. And I'll see you in hell, and here we both are. That scene is just incredible. There's so many
Mhm.
great just standalone scenes that feel like perfect comic book issues. The car chase, Arkham, the bomb at the funeral, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's again pressing back to your original point. It's like every single thing in this movie, every single thing is doing work.
Mhm. Yeah, it's all so intentional. Everything that
Mm-hmm.
happens, every story to every plot beat, I talked at length about the visual style, and that's what I'm most amazed by in the whole thing is the visual style and just how clearly intentional it is. Every single shot on purpose. It looks
Yeah,
the way it looks for a reason. There was a choice behind everything that they did.
there's not a single minute of screen time wasted. The closest thing that I can compare this to, and both movies are super different from one another, but something like Endgame, which is another 3-hour superhero movie.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like baggage in that movie that just feels like, why are we doing this? What's the point of this? And this movie is just like, there's a reason why we're seeing what we're seeing. There's not a single frame in this movie that's just pointless. It has a point, and it plays to the story, it plays to the characters, and it's really well done. And
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it all exists to strengthen. It all exists to strengthen where we end up. It all exists to strengthen the landing. It's very plot heavy. One thing that I think, I think it works really well when I think about an intricately woven plot where this is connected to this, and then this is connected to this, and this is connected to this, and everything has connections with something else within the plot. I think of Knives Out, first of all. That's the first one that comes to my mind in recent memory. Is just like Knives
Funny
Out.
that you mentioned that because of the video that I sent
Right.
That script is just so tight. It's like every single moment in that film has to be there for the next moment to work. And that next moment has to be there for the next moment to work. And every little thing is connected to another little thing, which is connected to another little thing, which inevitably leads to our big thing at the end, the big reveal. And I think the Batman is similar in its plot, where I think every single moment is there on purpose. It's there for a reason. And if you don't have it, if you take away anything, you may not get the resolution that you have. It may not have the effect that it should have at the end, whether that's the character arcs or just the plot in general. You have to have every little bit that happens. You have to have the cufflinks. You have to have Alfred saying, "Hey, you're still a Wayne," and then you have to have Bruce asking, "Are you a Wayne?" And he said, "No, but your dad gave him to me." You have to have that tension there, so that whenever you get to
my
the
father,
scene,
Alfred.
Yeah. You have to have that so that when you get to the scene of them in the hospital, he's like, "Oh, I'm still terrified of losing you. I'm still like that. Fear still exists because of you." Like, if you don't have the disconnect between them, then the connection between them in the hospital does not work as well as it should.
Then there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go going forward, because that hospital scene is not, we've mended all wounds. The hospital scene is, we're now on a ground that we can build upon again, because we can assume that they had this relationship when he was a boy, because he's been around, Alfred, but they tell you in dialogue, this Alfred, he had time in the circus. He at least has some sort of either Secret Service / military / something going on, because he says, "I was to protect your father." So he maybe he did do some house stuff, but clearly, he could beat some ass as well. And he says, I taught you needed a father. I could only teach you how to fight. We don't know. And we don't need to know. That's the other thing. This film is not raising questions that it in and of itself does not answer. If it does leave a hole, it's not something that's relevant here. Alfred says he taught him how to fight. A nerd comic book fan brain like mine is like, I wonder if he taught him everything, or if he gave him the tools and then Bruce did go around the world like a classic Batman did, like Nolan's Batman did. But it doesn't matter for right here. What matters right here is addressed here, is fleshed out here, and all the characters are able to come to a head. Like, we don't need to know what Selena Kyle might do, or what she has done, or what happened between her being, orphaned all the way up to being a cat burglar. Like, it doesn't matter. We know we are given everything we need from her. We see that she cares. We see that she is fiercely loyal. It's just, the script economy is just crazy.
Should we get into the unofficial 4 acts of the movie? I want to say something about Batman as a franchise as a whole. And this is just my opinion. It might be a hot take, may or may not be. I don't feel like I don't know about a single Batman movie, but I don't feel like there's ever been a great climax in a Batman movie. I really like the one in Begins, and I really like the one in the Dark Knight, and for
That
me
is a
the
hot
one in the
take.
and for me the one in
Yeah,
the dark
I
for me
think
the one in
I think Begins. Yeah.
yeah, and the one in the Dark Knight Rises
I
just
mean,
falls
are we
flat
gonna
for
have to talk
me.
about Lego Batman
Lego
where fucking
Batman. Yeah,
Voldemort
what's wrong?
shows
Well,
up?
yeah.
What's wrong with you, Edgar? That had
I forgot.
Sauron in it.
No, but I think
Had Daleks.
the Climax of '89 is also really good with
Yeah,
Joker.
but like, yeah, I've seen a lot of people complain about the climax in this movie feeling like very like tucked on and like feeling like filler or whatever. And to me, it's just like
What are
it
they
feels
considering the fourth act?
for me. The fourth act is like the whole like Gotham being floated and
Okay, so so Riddler. So I'm not saying you are saying. I'm just saying like
yeah,
the
yeah.
general public. So the complaint is that it should have ended when they got Riddler at the little corner diner
I guess that's a complaint. I don't know.
because
I think
people.
I've
I
heard
think
that
that
you
ain't an
know
too.
ending.
Yeah.
this is something that the Dark Knight does really well, and you know, I mean, they're inevitably going to be compared. I think the Dark Knight does it better than the Batman, but I think they both do it expertly. Is when you feel like the logical conclusion to a story is coming, right? Falcone's dead. They got the Riddler. Okay, what more is there to tell? Oh shit, surprise! Boom, another
Yeah.
30 minutes. Surprise,
And
fourth
Dark Knight
act. And
is
the Dark Knight does it
Two-Face.
well. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Two-Face.
Because,
Yeah.
oh no, Two-Face has Gordon's kids.
Mhm.
You think it's over, and then boom, there's more.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think that they
You know
both
what
do
else
it
does that?
extremely well. What?
Last Jedi.
They do.
Yeah.
That's right.
Last Jedi is a fourth act movie, like a mofucker, baby. I love how similar these movies are in so many ways.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's true, and you know, to your point, Edgar, like I do think this is a great one, and to refute or at least to push back on some people. I'm not saying everybody that is talking about the fourth act, but I don't see because nothing has been emotionally resolved by the time Riddler goes to Arkham. Not a single thing. No one's arc is complete except Cobblepot's because Falcone's dead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he
and
got what he
even
wanted.
then,
But
if we were to say that this was the four act, like that's the thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, fly with it. Like, give me another fucking hour of this movie. I could go for it.
I think
Yeah.
it's I think it's the fact that, you know, the plot feels complete. The characters don't, but the plot feels okay. What is there to do?
And that's the
Oh,
thing is
the
that
Riddler has an extra plan, and in that,
right.
we're going to get the conclusion of all these characters.
And audiences are not trained for plot and character to move at different paces or to have different roads to have, you know, like they're like, oh, what happened? Like I've had this with, and this is a completely different conversation, so I'm not going to fully unpack it, but I've had this with Game of Thrones a little bit where some of the characters I have
Edgar's
told
gonna log off right now.
well, I have told
Say those
people like
words.
That's a lot.
I've told people like some characters, look at them, some some characters
It's
in
that
that
Game of
show.
Thrones episode coming soon, by the way. If
Oh,
Edgar
I
wants to do it.
am there for it if you'll have me. But
Honestly, I wouldn't mind doing a recap of the show once House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Ends,
Ooh,
but that's
there's a nice
way
There's
down
a
the
lot
line.
of
Way down the line.
yelling.
but it's true. I mean, like that show, I use Jamie as an example, and again, not to get into it, but his story arc and his death are not at the same time. They do not end at the same time. A story arc for a character can end before the plot ends. The plot, quote unquote, can end before the arcs end, and you have to be able to wrap that up. Now, I can see, I can see an argument maybe that this quote unquote Return of the Kings it a little bit. I've had a couple friends say it should have ended when he's standing on top of the arena and they're evacing and like that woman puts her hand on him. That should have been the end, the final
I've heard
narration. And
someone say
I can see
it should have.
that. But
Yeah, I've heard someone say it should have ended when he was on the wire. I was like, what?
oh
This
no,
made sense.
hell no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense.
I feel like I get that some people think like Selena should have just went off. We didn't need the double motorcycle ride after it. I get that too. But I am a Return of the King supporter. I am the Batman supporter. I'll take all the endings. fade to black and keep going as many times as you want. Leave it all out there. And that's what I said off air before. I don't even think Preston was here yet when we were talking before the show. This feels like Rian Johnson with The Last Jedi, like James Gunn on the first Guardians, like Taika on Ragnarok, like a few of these tentpoles. Ryan Coogler on Black Panther. It feels like they were told by some movie god, you may only get to do this once. Like, this feels like Reeves left it all out there. Like, yes, he has ideas, but if it just went away and Warner Brothers went poof tomorrow and there was no more, like, he really did just like play every card he had.
I think especially with a franchise like Batman, with how in flux DC has been lately, he might have felt that urgency. I'm sure that when they went into it, I doubt they were like, all right, sequel's coming too, so make this one good. You know, there's no way that was the deal. They probably were hoping for it, I'm sure, but with how everything is going, I'm sure that they, you know, and this is maybe a discussion for another episode as well, but when you think about the Flash coming out and they're opening up the multiverse, I would imagine the studio heads over at Warner Brothers kind of have this in the back of their mind. Well, if we want to bring Pattinson in, we have the multiverse now, so we can into our mainstream timeline or whatever, if the audiences like it. But before this, when they're, you know, making the film, this, you put yourself in Matt Reeves' shoes, this might be the only time he gets to do something like this. This might be, you know,
because the talks of like, oh, let's do GCPD, let's do the Penguin show, like that doesn't come until post. You know, like that's like studios have seen a cut. It's, you know, we're maybe doing some reshooting. Pattinson has COVID, so there's the 6-month shutdown, and then the further shutdown of Pattinson being sick, and then so it's like there's a lot of sitting on this thing where things started to come together for him. But during writing and during principle, like this is a guy that signed on for Ben Affleck when Ben didn't want to direct, and then you lose your star, and by the way, if you're gonna have a second choice, my God, what a second choice! Like this is, you know, Pattinson should not have even had this role, and for it to have worked out the way it did, yeah, it does feel like he had that sense of urgency and like he was just gonna lay it all out there. And now it's like seeing his versions of these characters. He's talked about Freeze. Fuck yeah, I want to see that. Pattinson and Dano keep talking about Court of Owls. God, yes. Like, just do it up. We're talking about Arkham. Bring in Hugo Strange. Like, just.
I really want to see what Reeves can do with Poison Ivy. That'd be fascinating. Like,
look,
who would cast? Like,
I'm just gonna say this. If y'all read the trades, like I think all of us do, back when Zoe Kravitz was cast, I believe it was 3 finalists or 3 front runners. Zoe Kravitz is one of them. Isa Gonzalez was another one. And Ana de Armas was the other one.
That's right, yeah.
If Ana de Armas was the Poison Ivy for Zoe Kravitz Catwoman,
oh my God.
Like I would, first of all, just twist the knife on Ben Affleck. That like he's out and like Ana de Armas is in. Like I'm just saying.
Not only would she be in, but she'd be in as this very sexual character.
Oh
yeah,
very
unbelievably so. Yeah,
would the cardboard not his make Batman. A cameo?
The cardboard cut out, and Wayne Alfred's throwing it away in the middle of the movie. Yeah, he can't. So far he's done nothing but cast these perfectly. So it's like, yeah, his Poison Ivy would be great. It makes me wonder: is he gonna do Bane correctly? Ooh. You know, with that Venom tease, like, and for Bruce to have made it is a nice twist to it. Because that's what that felt like to me. Maybe not like I'm gonna do Bane in the next one, but it was like, hey, just so you know, we got it in this universe.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah,
and not that I hate Tom Hardy's Bane because I think he's great, but if that came out now, it would rightfully be blasted for whitewashing a character, and it would, you know, Bane has an entire very class-focused origin about our prison system. His mother was a prisoner. His Latin culture is so deeply rooted in his character. Play the Arkham games. It has a great Bane. He calls one of the doctors a bruja for like most of the first game, and it's awesome. But
I don't know if you've seen the Harley Quinn show. the animated series.
I've
That
seen a
Bane.
couple episodes. Yeah,
See,
that Bane
Bane
doesn't
is
he?
like that, but Bane is also
Yeah,
goofy, and like I'd love
yeah,
to see Reeves playing to that too.
yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing. Like I don't know how true it is. Wasn't there like a thing like a couple days ago? Like they want Anya Taylor-Joy to be Harley Quinn and the Pattinson continuity, and I'm like, feels very strike while the iron's hot. Very like
Yeah,
she's in
she'd
right
probably
now. I
be a
don't,
good take, but yeah, she's
but she'd
just
be
like in
good.
the
Yeah.
scene
So
right
it's
now.
her and Florence Pugh battling for every role, seeing each other at the end of every audition process. I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
I think
yeah,
she'd
it's
do a
super
good.
interesting.
I think she'd do a good Harley Quinn, but I don't know that. Um, I I'm first of all, I'm surprised that DC that Barry Keoghan. I don't know how to say his last name. Is it
yeah.
Keoghan? Keoghan,
His
I've
whatever
always
his
said
name is.
Kyogen.
right?
Yeah.
I'm surprised that
Oh,
there's
really?
even a Joker cameo in this movie because of
Yeah,
how recent Jared Leto is and how they're
Even
still
more
going
recent,
forward with a
Joaquin.
sequel to
To
Joaquin
Joaquin
Phoenix's
Joaquin.
Phoenix.
Joker.
Yeah, yeah.
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 So it's like I'm surprised that they're doing that because it is bold. So I would be
Did you
very
like the scene?
surprised. Yo, I loved it. I would be
Yeah, I
very
liked it too.
surprised. Yeah, and I'd be
Me
happy to see
too.
more of
Yeah,
him. But I'd be very surprised if they brought in Harley Quinn based on
but
Yeah.
how
I didn't read the
um
article yet. But didn't Reeves just say that like don't expect him in another movie?
mhm.
Or is
Yeah.
this like
Oh,
a
he did say
cameo?
He
that.
could be
Good.
lying
Okay.
too.
Because I was
Basically
like,
like
Yeah.
right, yeah.
I love the way he's used.
You could
I like it as a nod to the everyone watching. Like, yes, he's in this world, but we're doing these things right now. Like that's why
Yeah.
I liked it as a let's add an element of horror to Arkham that the Joker's already in there. Let's have somebody that can amp up Riddler, give him that encouragement maybe for his next time. He talks about a comeback story. The dialogue
Mhm.
between them is great.
So good.
But I don't need the Joker to be in this. But it also I've seen some speculation like those first thugs in the movie seem like Joker thugs. Has he already been out there and already been caught?
That's
Like, is
that's what
yeah.
this
I
I think that's
took
what
from his dialogue.
the
Like,
well, and that's what the article kind of touched on was basically
really?
saying like yeah, I mean I didn't read it all. I kind of skimmed it because I didn't see it until the movie was about to start tonight. But pretty much the gist of what I got was don't expect to see him again. We had him in more scenes earlier on in the film, but then we cut those scenes because we felt like what they were accomplishing was being accomplished in other
He was in
scenes
the
that we
first
kept in.
interrogation scene, was what I read.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Bruce was gonna go to him to like profile serial killers.
Yeah, but the idea was not to say, "Oh, let's put a Joker cameo in here to tease the sequel." The idea was to say, "Let's put a Joker cameo in here to say, they've been going at it for a while. Like this has been happening. Obviously, he's only 2 years in as Batman, but you know, there's still a history. There's
Maybe he
still
brought him down in year one, which
yeah,
isn't the
That's what
Jeffrey
it
Wright
sounded like. Yeah.
GCPD show supposed to be the first year? So it's
I
like
think so.
maybe
Yeah.
Barry Keoghan
that'd be
is the
interesting.
season villain of that show or something. Like it'd be interesting to see just cops versus Joker. Like I don't know, but yeah,
Also,
it
like
is
if we
interesting.
do see him, I don't want it to be part two. Like that's
No.
something you tease here, then I at least show in the last part or part three. You know.
I'm hoping that and again, like it's not a one-to-one, but you'll understand what I mean. Marvel for a long time, even every now and then still, they got a lot of fucking mileage out of the Chitauri. They were like, even all the way up to like Spider-Man Homecoming, that shit was Chitauri technology. Like the Battle of New York, it's still in Hawkeye. We're still getting Battle of New York fallout. I don't need the Thomas and Martha drama to be Matt Reeves's Battle of New York, where everything goes back to Thomas and Martha. That said, Court of Owls feels obvious, but also I would love it if the third or fourth or fifth film it is the son of that reporter that Thomas had intimidated, and that is Thomas Elliott. Like I would love it if it was that full circle. Like it begins with the fallout of your parents, it ends with the fallout of your parents. but you are now a fully formed Batman, maybe with a sidekick, et cetera, et cetera. Go all the way in on Hush. Hush is also spoilers for Hush, I guess. Spoilers for a comic that's been out for 20 years. It's not just Hush as the big bad. It is also Riddler. So that would be a great Riddler payoff too. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that he could go for it. I just hope that he continues to reinvent them in these original ways, a combination of old and new. Because Batman Returns had Penguin and Catwoman, and Reeves said, "I'll do it again," and it's nothing like those. So everything feels on the table.
Yeah, since we're going down that line, that route, where do we think, or where are we going next with part 2? What do we think?
I think everybody wants to see Freeze.
Mr. Freeze?
I think that's the common opinion in the streets right now.
Yeah.
You're in the streets, Edgar. You gotta.
He's like a
interviewing
beat reporter.
Yeah. What do you think? Who do you want to
I
see?
Standing
really
outside
want-
his theater every single showing.
I really want a live action take Mad Hatter. We haven't had it yet. That'd be really fucking cool. I know it's similar to Joker, but like there's also those distinct differences with the character.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, especially with the iconography of Alice in Wonderland and how you could sort of play. They could bring in Johnny Depp and let him do a new Mad Hatter. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But I think that I think that
Hollywood ideas.
there's so many great rogues that I'm like. My instinct is like, show me someone that's never been touched, or like someone like Freeze, where it's like it's been done once and we all know that it can be very different.
Or
there's
Hugo.
like some villains like
Strange would be
Hugo.
cool.
Hugo would be great. There's some smaller ones like Professor Pig from the Grant Morrison run. I would love the Court of Owls. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But villains, you could go a million different ways. I feel like some are going to be follow-ups. Like I think that Penguin will be his Cillian Murphy Scarecrow, where it's like that is a constant thread. What I would like to see though is an expansion of Bruce more so than anything else. I want to see a haircut in the next film. I want to see the philanthropy. I want to see maybe a fancy car or two. He doesn't need to be loving it,
aspect,
but make that part of your tool set. Like I can get information as Bruce and as Batman, and give me some of the other love interests. Like Selina's gone, maybe she pops in for a supporting role, but the tragedy of Batcat is that they cannot be. And so give me someone like Silver St. Cloud, give me a new iteration of Vicky Vale. I have love for the Nolan films, but Rachel was never really my thing. Rachel is never a character that I thought was fully realized. So do something like that and expand the Bat family. It doesn't have to be Lucius, doesn't have to be anyone we know, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think going forward, like that's something that, and you hear a lot of people, this is something I've touched on in chat with you guys, but you hear a lot of people talk about, Pattinson's my new favorite Batman, but I don't think he's my new favorite Bruce Wayne yet. And it's like, well, it's kind of the point, because he's not Bruce Wayne yet. Like, he doesn't have that aspect of him. Yeah, he is Bruce Wayne, whatever. But Bruce Wayne is the mask. Batman's not the mask. And when you take that into account, he probably shouldn't be your favorite Bruce Wayne yet. He doesn't have, he's not a likable
asshole.
Bruce Wayne. Yeah. He's not a
he's
likable
rude
Bruce
to
Wayne
Alfred. Yeah. He's rude to Alfred.
If you're going to compare them, I mean, you look at Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne specifically, but even Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, I think of the scene in Batman versus Superman at the
Luther's party
event. Yeah, I mean,
it's so good.
Ooh, that's a good. I love that scene.
That scene is, and I'm not a fan of the movie, but that scene of him and Cavill going at it, when he talks about guys dressed like clowns, and he gives sort of that little smile. It's like, oh,
It's really well executed, and his Bruce Wayne is really well executed in those moments like that. And Bale, I mean, the whole Nolan trilogy is full of moments like that where he really gets to be this, charismatic rich boy who.
And Keaton is like that too. To his credit, I know you haven't seen those in a while, but Keaton, Keaton was charismatic, but also weird. Like his Wayne Manor had all those armors from around the world and like all this stuff, and yeah, it would just be really neat to see what is Pattinson's version of that. What is Pattinson as an ally of this new mayor? What is his sort of like progressive sort of policy going to look like? Is he? I personally would love to see some follow-ups, some direct follow-ups, like show me an orphanage that is functioning and that is healthy and that is light. And maybe that's where a kid named Dick Grayson or a kid named Tim Drake, is in there or something like that. I don't know.
So as we start to wind down, anything else you want to add? No?
That's a good question. It's just I wanted to fill the silence. I don't know. I feel like we've covered so much, but again, there are three things that I am most impressed by this film. And number one is its tight script. Everything has a purpose. Everything, I think something I noticed tonight when I saw it in the narration scene with Bruce, there's a shot of him driving by Gotham Square Garden. That doesn't need to be there. Like, it can be anywhere, but they're already establishing these things. And when he drives by, it holds on a poster that's on like a trash can or a mailbox that says "Real Change" for Bella Real's mayoral campaign. Those are little seeds. They're planting it in your mind because, at the end, boom, real change is the whole thing that Riddler keeps saying. And obviously the whole fourth act is happening at Gotham Square Garden. And we recognize it because we planted those seeds in the audience's mind throughout the film whilst other things were happening. So I think that's the number one thing I'm most impressed by. And then 2 and 3 have to be the visual style because it is so intentional, and the score because I do think that it's the work of Michael Giacchino's career. So I think all of those things, it just knocks it fully out of the park in ways that no other film in the genre does.
I guess for my final thoughts about the Batman as a whole, the future for this franchise is so freaking bright. It's so exciting. I honestly don't think I've been like this emotionally like affected by a comic book movie like in a very long time. Like, yeah, sure, No Way Home had its moments, especially that ending, but nothing like on this level, like from beginning, middle, and end. And a movie like this, like we were kind of discussing this last night, me, Josh, and Preston, how the future for Batman is so bright that it kind of makes me even less excited for something like for Flashpoint. for
As a Keaton
Flashpoint
stan, I'm still excited for that.
I like Keaton, but it's harder to be excited for him. It's still excited, but when you have something else that is so phenomenal and so fresh, it's like you have this new thing. It's like someone just gave you a brand new candy you've never tried and you love it and it's amazing, and then they're like, oh, also we have these M&Ms. You're like, oh, but I want the new thing more. I want more of that. I like M&Ms, but I want the new thing. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, and that
Preston exactly calls Michael Keaton M&Ms of movies.
Yeah,
he's the M&Ms of Batman.
Gotta hear first.
More on this. No, I agree with that. I mean, it's hard. It's like you want to judge something on its own terms, of course, and we will. I want Flash to be. First of all, I feel bad for Flash because it was hard enough just getting audiences to accept this type of storytelling, the type that they're doing multiversal stuff outside of animation with Spider-Verse. But then it was like, damn, Spider-Man got there first. Oh, damn, Doctor Strange is going to get in there too before we do. Like, it's like now they're going to be third to the party. So it's like that's even harder in terms of expectations. And now you add in this, like, this film to me is the ultimate Batman film. It's my favorite one.
Yeah.
It's the more you think about it, the stronger it gets versus the other way around with some films where you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. That kind of sucks. Or, oh, that's kind of falling apart for me. I'm questioning that. This only gets stronger. It's a great psychological thriller. It's a great noir. It's a great superhero film. It's just, it has everything, and it is a Batman movie. It's not a crime drama that has a version of Batman in it, which is a very different thing. It's not apologizing for what it is. It is utterly aware of every single thing, takes itself so seriously. And I think that it just brings me such joy. It brings me joy as a Twilight hater, let alone I can imagine how happy Twilight fans must be. But to have,
they're very happy.
To have Preston's like, yes, they're very, yes.
Text my girlfriend real quick. They're very happy.
Like these, to have Pattinson doing this and Kristen Stewart having Spencer, and just like, oh, like the two of them, like fully realize, and that, like, I've loved Paul Dano since Little Miss Sunshine. He's always been one of my favorites. Yeah. That guy, he was the only choice for the Riddler in my mind. Once they announced him, I was like, fucking A, he's so good. It's just this in just, what is it? It's been 2 days since I've seen it. This is up there for me with Spider-Verse and Logan. Then I would have to think about the rest, but like, this is Rushmore material right here. This is like a pillar already.
Yeah, so for me, like, as a huge fan of the Arkham games, that's like been my Batman. Like, my knowledge of Batman mostly stems from those games. Seeing this detective side of Batman finally being realized in a film just makes me so happy. And like, that's my main love of this movie. Put like the technical aspects aside, the story, just seeing Detective Batman finally is just like, it's awesome. We finally have it. And like, also the scene of like such a fresh and beautiful, but like also harrowing version of this character in Gotham being realized is like, it's a dream. This is a dream movie, and I'm so happy it exists. I can't believe it exists. Kind of like, I'm surprised it exists. So I'm just happy with this movie.
Kind of feels like a fever dream, like seeing, like, for me this movie represents everything that's good about Batman, like throughout the years, like everything from the Nolan trilogy, from the Burton stuff, from the animated series, the Arkham games. It's like it has a little bit of everything, and it like meshes them like in such a perfect way. So yeah. Do you want to take us out?
I'll take us out. Just one more thing, since Colin Farrell was amazing in this film. I dubbed yesterday Farrell Friday because not only did this come out, After Yang also came out, another film, A24.
I still need to watch that.
He's incredible in that. So if you're watching this and haven't seen it, go find it near a theater near you, or it's also on Showtime. After Yang.
After what?
Yang.
Yang?
Yang.
Interesting.
After Yang.
I have not heard of this.
It's Tonada. I don't know if you've seen Columbus. It's an indie film. It's like on the indie circuit, but it's on Showtime if you have that also. Check it out.
Does he have an accent in that?
He has his own accent. Yeah. His Irish accent.
Take it easy, sweetheart.
I want that.
But yeah, that's been our first episode. It's been fun times. Thank you so much, Alden, for doing this with us. Where can
Oh,
people
thanks
find
for
you?
having me. Yeah, you can find me personally at that Alden Diaz on Twitter and Instagram, talking about probably Star Wars, but also stuff like Dua Lipa and politics and all types of stuff.
The
And
pillars of
now,
life.
now the Batman, truly, I mean, that's if I could have just the raw energy of the Batman and all of that horniness with Dua Lipa and all of that horniness and just combine them together, you would be able to synthesize me for. I would
But
never die.
Alden,
Essentially,
Dua
I would.
Lipa has poison ivy.
Don't say that to me. Don't put that in my mind. Well, especially because people keep forgetting that she's about to make her acting debut with
Is
Matthew
she?
Vaughn.
She
She's going to
is.
be in
Oh,
Matthew
Right,
Vaughn's film
yeah.
Argyle with all those other people. So her in a
Yeah.
spy film, like I don't know what her role is going to be. I hope it's not just like she plays a singer. Like, all right, like
Yeah.
I know that there's a real chance that they
Very
might do
Ariana
that, but
Grande and Don't Look Up moment.
exactly. Like I
Mhm.
want her to be like a Bond woman, like in that spy movie or something like that. But anyway, uh, I'll go off on her for hours. But you can also find me on Talking Star Wars at Octo Radio, Star Wars Podcast. It's AHCHTO Radio. It's 3 shows. It's my show. There's another show hosted by Tori Fox, another show I do with the person that brought all of us together, at least me to you guys, Nikki Kumar. And that's on break right now while Nikki handles some real life stuff. And then that'll be back soon. And then, yeah, other stuff whenever it comes up and is relevant. I produce radio. You don't listen to the radio anymore. You probably got Spotify. So there you go.
Yeah. Fun. Preston, where do people find you?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at Preston C. Moore. And that is where you can find me. You can find me on the next episode of this podcast, probably whenever that happens. I am currently working on a number of things, including but not limited to looking for a job, and also working on a couple other podcasts that I'm pretty excited about. So yeah, that'll be going on, and I'm excited about that. But that's kind of where my what's going on with me right now. I don't really have anything to plug right now, unless you want to
Yeah.
read reviews of things that came out a long time ago that I wrote a while back, because that's my most recent output into this space that you guys might be interested in. So yeah, if you're interested in reading a review of Soul from 2020, hit me up.
Which you
'cause
should be.
I wrote a good ass review on that, and I would love for you to read it if you're still
Oh,
interested. But
Preston also took a great 4K Dua Lipa video
I
to
did.
keep it relevant to the topics at hand.
I did. I took a good Dua Lipa video. It went viral on Twitter,
Yeah.
and yeah, I need to post the rest of those because I took a lot and I only posted the one. But anyways, that's where you can find me posting Dua Lipa videos,
God bless.
or sending them directly to Alden because of the eyebrows he just gave me. So, but yeah,
Adding them to the bank.
Okay. Edgar, where do people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at EDCK. Where I'll probably gonna be bullying Preston for the rest of the night about Dua Lipa and sparkling water. um, you know it's good. You know it's good.
I really, but I don't is the thing. But anyways, Josh
Look at
pulling up with
Josh.
a White Claw. No
Gonna-
laws when you're drinking claws. Okay, on the episode 1 of the pod, bringing
Exactly.
a White Claw. Let's go.
Wait, Josh, you got to
Let's
change your
go.
background. You got to change your background with the White Claw.
Let's do it.
You gotta set the tone.
You
Good
know what you
tone
have
for
to
an
do.
Indian right now.
No, there it is.
White Claw.
Anyway, where I was, it hasn't been published, but I write reviews for this website called Loud and Clear Reviews. And it's kind of hard to talk right now with the thing distracting me on the background.
What's up?
But I wrote a retro review on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, another Matt Reeves movie. So keep an eye for that. Might be good, maybe not. I don't know. check it out.
I want to read that because I recently watched that.
So
You watched
good.
it for
For
the
the
first
first
time
time, right?
recently. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it was
Mhm.
my first time. I loved it.
Best sequel. One of the best sequels, I think.
This guy's got a
So-
bright future. This Matt Reeves.
Yeah,
He does.
One
we
last
should make a
thing.
Batman movie.
He's
You know
gonna.
what? That would be pretty neat, huh?
He's gonna do
What a
things.
concept.
I think he's
Josh,
got a
where can we
strong,
find you?
Hey,
yeah.
me. You can find me on Twitter at Josh D. Woodbury. And you'd find my letterbox link there also. But that's just tweeting about whatever I want, honestly. Been working on this, like a lot of my time has been working on this. It's been fun. And yeah. That's basically it. That's been our first episode.
Shoutouts
Been,
to our artist. I don't remember
yeah,
her name, but
what's
shoutouts to her.
Cecilia
Preston?
Lopez Klaus.
Yeah,
She's
good
wonderful.
job helping
She's
designing
made a
this
lot of good art
logo.
for me
This beautiful
over the
logo
last
that you see in the
4 or
top
5
right hand
years.
corner. And yeah, so we're working on ideas for next episodes. A guarantee that we're definitely doing is March 27th, night of the Oscars. You can expect a live watch along on this channel. So if you like that idea,
We might
come
we
join
might
us.
e- we might be even able to do that earlier since they're gonna tweet out the winners
Oh
in
God,
advance
let's not get into
But
that
that's a
right
topic
now.
for another time.
in a few weeks. In a few weeks.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this podcast is gonna be like about whatever you want in film and pop culture. So expect anything. I'm not really sure. Like, don't have finite details of what's coming next, but we don't have a schedule, but just hang in there. We'll let you know. So that's been the first episode of Where Heartbreak Feels Good. So to leave it on a good note, somehow heartbreak feels real good here. Goodbye.